Some women succeed and some women were never expected to.
While at school, I knew I was a C student, and you hear me say I knew I was a C student because really I felt that way. All the indications say that. I hated school because of the label. I hated just being in the space. You almost don't want to try. The experts are saying that you have this limit to which you can operate.
Early labels, especially for girls, can shape confidence, identity, and future outcomes. But every now and then, a woman breaks that pattern and becomes proof that the system got it wrong. Educational leader, author of Most Important Student in the Classroom of Life, international speech champion, and a powerful voice in storytelling, faith, and transformation. Her journey from early academic struggle to national impact is not just inspiring, it's disruptive. This is an exploration of what happens when a woman refuses to live inside a label and instead becomes her own definition. Let's step into the classroom of life with Dr. Euphemia Burke Robinson.
Thank you so very much.
Dr. Robinson, before the titles and achievements, what were the labels placed on you as a young girl?
So I grew up in rural Jamaica. When I was going to school, I wasn't a brilliant student. As a matter of fact, I struggled with reading. And so in those times, we would have our classes, they would be labeled. You would be labeled based on your ability to read. So you have Group A, Group B, and Group C. And predominantly, I would be in the group labeled C. I've always longed to get rid of that label. But it would have been my academic acumen that would have caused me to move out of this Group C to Group B or Group A. But unfortunately, I was not able to move out. And so that kind of a label, it did something for you and for me, certainly.
Yes.
It boxed you in. It did that for me.
Did you believe those labels at any point, Dr. Robinson, or did something in you resist being labeled a C reader? So
yes. It did something for me, and indeed I believed that I was not able to move beyond that. And so it almost became defining as to, how far you would go. It actually puts this limit on how it is that you would even explore yourself and also be determinant about how it is that you come into yourself. Because of where you stand. Because in my own mind, everybody knew that I was not performing at the levels that I was supposed to perform. And so I hated school. I didn't want to be in an environment where I was called upon to read aloud. I didn't want to be caught with a book because of the label. You know that you are not a reader. And so for me, it really says to me that, hey, you have this limitation and you might not be able to move beyond. If I can plug this with something else, though, to say that sometimes intentions behind the label might be to identify you so that you can get remediation and treatment to correct a situation that you're struggling with. But for myself, who was wearing the label, it was restricting to me personally.
Okay, so the irony though, Dr. Robinson, you are now at the Ministry of Education doing your thing, the ironies of life. But I want to ask a question. What does a label do to a young girl's identity, especially when it comes from authority figures like teachers? What does it do to you?
Can share with you that it can do either of two things. It can be debilitating and own the label and don't move beyond that, or it can challenge you and pull out of you determination. So it's really now about your own mindset and how it is that you conceptualize the label and what you believe about yourself. And also what it is that is countering. Because the truth is that if it is that at school, you're being told that, look, you are a Group C student, but at home, some other persons who you believe in, who you trust, who are nurturing you, are saying to you that, look, you are a Group A student. You may choose to believe either of the competing labels that you are being given. But it is just now how it is that you conceptualize, and also the different noises and the different voices and the different motivators that are in your space. So that's my thought on that.
Well said, well said. Was there ever a moment you felt boxed in, though, by other people's expectations of you? Whether it was the C person saying that, you are a C grade reader, per se, and somebody in your corner saying, Euphemia, you are an A student. So did you feel boxed in at any time to the expectations?
All right. So I could pull on and that kind of a example that I shared earlier, because that was really my reality. So while at school, I would copy from other students just to try to see, how I could leverage up with other students. I would hide away from school because I hated just, being in the space. In addition to that, at home, my father was saying to me that I'm a brilliant student. My father was saying that I believe in you. He was saying to me that you are going to go places, And so sometimes you wonder and say, boy, I wonder if he understands what he's saying, because he is not the expert. Here at home, I have a father, and he was nothing near an educator. He could read, but he was no educator. And here he was saying to me that you are a star, you are my star. So I had the experience where I was in a state of ambivalence where you don't know, who really to believe. And the truth is that the professionals seeped in because they were greater influence on my own abilities academically because of their own posturing and because of the context.
Okay, thanks for that. Research, though, shows that many girls who are labeled early often stay within those limitations, yet you didn't, and you mentioned your dad's input in that. Why do you think you became the exception, though, Dr. Robinson?
I must say that it is a number of things, a myriad of things that caused me to escape what it is that the literature is saying about the early labels. So one thing was my own father and his situation. It's a little paradoxical because he was what we label to be a drunkard. So that's one situation. But the other is that I would have had the experience of seeing just how my mother struggled to send us to school, struggled to put food on the table. We never wore new clothes. We would wear what my mother would get from her other customers at the market. They would send hand-me-downs and we would ramble through and find what could fit. So I saw that and I realized that I needed this thing called education. So I came into this kind of knowledge as a grade 6 student. So all along my primary years, I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't have the urge. As a matter of fact, I didn't even want to do exams. I was afraid. I was hoping that I was not sent through exams like my older siblings because they didn't write the exam, because they didn't matriculate to write the exam, right? But I came into myself and I get this very real, this very vivid understanding and appreciation of hardship by what my mother was going through. And so I became mature when I got to grade 6. I became so mature and understand that I am going to be that answer for my family. And that made the difference. I realized that there was this great responsibility that was going to be placed on me, since it is that my siblings before me didn't even write the exam. I had a sister that was coming behind me. And here I was, I had a mother that I loved dearly. She worked hard, you know? And so I realized that for me, it has to be this thing called education. And I didn't have the basics, so I better settle down and make some different decisions about how I spend my time and how I made use of the resources in my surroundings. And my resources meaning my teachers and probably the 1 or 2 books in my home.
Wow. Okay, so what did you have to unlearn now, Dr. Robinson, about yourself to grow beyond those early definitions?
Something defining happened to me when I was in grade 6. So when I started to pick up, and I started to pick up because, one, I was going to write the common entrance exam, and I heard my teacher said to some other educators, they were questioning about the group, and she said, I'm sending these children to write the common entrance, but these are going to pass, but these over here, they are not going to pass. I was in that group that wasn't going to pass. And when I heard that evening, it meant something to me. And so I went home that very evening and I started I just took up the one book that I had, the Mental Abilities 1000 at the time. And I started to see what I could what I could do from it. And my father said to me, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm studying." I didn't know anything about studying or anything, but I sat there on that chair that my mother had inherited from a lady that had died, and around beside the dresser that didn't have any mirror, in that one room that held all 7 of us. And I was there saying that I was going to study. And then the following day I went to school or thereabout. I tried not to sit at the back anymore. So I did some little things that was towards my just trying to change the narrative. And then something else happened. When I started to pick up, my teacher gave me a gift. And Lady Clark, it was a workbook. But that book, it was poignant. It spoke volume. It says, improved student. It was the first time I felt like Smaddy in my whole life. I walked up. I collected the prize and I heard my name call and I said, "This feels good." The truth is that it was a moment. It was a defining moment in my entire life up to that point. It meant something. And I said, maybe I can feel good like this again. And I remained hungry for that feeling. And so that created that catalyst that set me off on a trajectory to get that feeling again and again and again. That defining moment.
Okay, so do you think the system failed you though, Dr. Robinson? Or did it simply not know how to see you?
I don't think the system failed me. But what I thought was happening was there were so many things. So here we were, my own family. My mom, she doesn't read above grade 3 level. So she struggled with reading. In my home, I didn't have the stimulation so that I could be able to read. I didn't have the discipline even as a child. My mother would try. She tried hard. She sent us to school, but I didn't want to be in school because of what was happening. And so my mind was otherwise directed. Any minute I could get to hide away, I would. Any minute I get to just go on and say that I want to use the bathroom, I would escape school, So my mindset was not there to say, look, I need to settle down. I need to understand the phonics. I need to understand the comprehension so that I could make good understanding of stories and I could unlock words so that they have meanings to me. So I don't think they failed. I think that the resources that we had at the time that they were using it to the best of their abilities to get me to learn to read. But there was something that was missing, my own disposition and how it is that I comport myself in the space, even as a child at school. That's my thinking.
At what point did you stop trying to fit and start becoming who you truly were, at the core of who Euphemia is?
All right. So my name is Euphemia. I got that from my grandmother. She was a powerful woman of God. When I was born, she was out on mission. And if you know what mission means, it means that she's led by the Holy Ghost. And she said the Holy Ghost instructed her and directed her to my home, where she came and she cut the navel string and she delivered me. And she said a prayer over me. She said that my light is going to shine so that others will see my good works and be led to glorify my Father which is in heaven. And she named me Euphemia. Euphemia actually means well-spoken. Also, when my grandmother told me that story about how it is that she named me, how it is that she spoke over me, I came into to believe her so much that I don't walk around even today with a sad face. I don't walk around with a sad face because I know that I am that light, you know? And so those words, they seeped into me and they caused me, even when it thinks that things are so low, to believe that I am still going to be that shining light that is going to permeate darkness and bring forth light. So I started to come into myself now when I got that prize, and with the story that my grandmother shared about me, and with the kind of belief that my father had in me and how it is that they inject all of that in me, I started to believe in myself, and then I started to own this thing called reading. It was a skill that I didn't have. So when I started to read, I became powerful in terms of my knowledge base, in terms of how I conceptualize education, in terms of how it is that I leverage my skills, my communication skills. And so it just sets off me on this track of, developing confidence and just, becoming, just start to own some things about myself, like, hey, you are a light. You've got to shine. Hey, your name is Euphemia. It's a powerful name. You have to wear it well. You have to wear it with square shoulders and head lifted high. So that kind of thing.
You know something? You're a brilliant storyteller, Dr. Robinson, because you just took me. I don't know. I just saw myself in that room where I saw your grandmother actually cutting in the cord. I just saw it. So you are a brilliant storyteller.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Okay, so for women out there who needs to know, how do you rebuild your identity after years of being underestimated? How you go about it?
Thank you for that. I must share with you that there was a time in my life when I actually dipped and lost self-confidence, felt like a doormat, and this was because of intimate partner violence. So I went through that. And then I said to myself that I still can continue on that journey called education. I registered in a learning institution. Actually, I went to UWI to do my first degree. So that was my coming out. When I got to UWI, I went to this mentorship seminar. It was a Saturday morning. While I was there, the person who was hosting the session, they asked us to just declare just one thing. And I stood up in that auditorium and I said, I am going to enter this pageant, this beauty pageant. No, I never think that I was anything like that kind of beauty thing. I never think that I had the 360 turn or the 180 turn.
Why not?
I just didn't think so because of where I was coming from. Because my partner said I was ugly. He said I was not good for anything. I was torn. I was a doormat. I became that. I wanted to my life to end. I didn't think that I was good for anything. And that seeped into me and I believed it to my core. But when I said to myself, I'm going to enter that, I gave myself the permission to grow again. And I gave myself that challenge. And what happened in that moment is that I told it to the atmosphere, not only to the persons that were there, I told it to the atmosphere. And so I believe that there is something, when it is that you said it to the atmosphere, there is this kind of compelling force that says, look here, you say it out loud, and you said it so that others are going to hold you to it. And also, you now have the responsibility to hold yourself to it. And so that act of saying it out loud and then start to challenging myself about how it is that I'm going to do it, that thing helps me to move forward. So if it is that I were to say how it is that you lift yourself, I think that we can set ourselves big challenges that when we look around, we say, then did I really say that? Did I really commit myself to a pageant? So I think that if it is that we set ourselves some very lofty and ambitious challenges, and then we set ourselves to achieving them, I think that we can break glass ceilings and we can escape from anything, any kind of limitations that are placed on our lives. I believe that. Set it out there. Challenge ourselves. I entered and it was a beautiful experience. I learned to do the 360 turn, the 180 turn, and that for me was totally different area that I was venturing into, but I enjoyed it. And guess what? At the end, I won, and I
Any friends? How was the
Certainly, the coach that, prepared us in terms of how to respond to the questions, how to make sure that we had a good stage presence. Also, we had a dance, and I've never considered myself a dancer, but I had to learn the moves and to just play my part. We had the photo shoot, and it was the first time I was having that kind of a exposure where I was going to be showing off, not just my intellectual, but also physics that I think I didn't have. But it worked out, and I did something purposeful. I just tried at all the different stages to enjoy the process. Along the journey, I was Miss Congenial. So I won that also as a sectional prize, and I got best talent piece. I did a dubbed poem, and it was beautiful. It was such a beautiful experience, and that single experience caused me to think that I was worth something. And ever since I entered competitions and started to think differently about myself, about my worth, about the things that I could do, and not taking myself so seriously, because just enjoy moments, and the single moments that you enjoy, they just form this rich tapestry of your own becoming. So that was it.
Brilliantly said, Dr. Robinson. So I need to find out a little bit more about in terms of your book now. In Most Improved Student in the Classroom of Life, you own your story fully. Was that process liberating or confronting?
It was both. It was both. It was confronting and liberating. So liberating in the sense that I wrote the story and I owned it. And this is me. This is my own becoming. This is my experience. And I strongly believe that I am who I am because of where I come from to stand on this platform and to share with the world. So I own it. Oh, in order for me to have produced, I went back to Dryhill in Garden Hill, St. Catherine, and I had conversations with the persons who nurtured me, my neighbors, and said, do you remember this? Do you? And so that for me was information. it was confirmation to say that those things that I had in my mind and I had written down on paper, that I was able to corroborate and to triangulate with the persons who knew me from I was until now. And then it was liberating because I get to share this with the world. It was also cathartic because the fact that I can share, and there are deep things in this story, the fact that I can share with not just my family members, not just my close friends, but I can put it out there so that the world can know how I get to be who I am, the experiences that I had, the things that I believe about myself, the persons who are in my life, the different roles that they play. I think that was truly a liberating experience. So it was a real mix for me.
It's a paradox, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so do you believe more women need to tell their story, Dr. Robinson, even the uncomfortable ones? Do you believe?
I do believe that regardless of the feel of the story, regardless of how it is that it makes you I love when I hear persons sharing, because it says that it is their authentic self. Now, I must caution, because we must wait on ourselves when we are ready. We must know when we're ready, when we're at that space where we are ready to share. And I believe that we must share so that other women can hear our stories, can appreciate our stories, and it can be that catalyst that can liberate them so that they can say, look, if it is that Euphemia can have that experience, and she was able to, with all the love in her space, with all the challenges, with all the affirmations, with all the confirmations, that she can move ahead and put every day one foot in front of the other, that I can do that also. And so I think that it is something that we do with our sisters, but not just with our sisters, but we do it for our sisters that sometimes feel like, look, this is it. I'm at the end of the road. They can listen to the story and said, no, I have a blueprint that I can follow. I have a mentor. I have somebody who I can follow, because that for me is what it is. When we talk about neuro-linguistic programming, it says that success leaves a story that you can follow, and you can achieve success also. I think we should share.
Definitely. Okay, I'm so enraptured in all of this that you're saying, but when you look at your life now, do you see yourself as an exception or as a signal that the system needs to change?
All right, so I can share with you that I know that the system has changed, because even how it is that we group students now, we group students not just in a defining group, but students are placed in groups so that they can collaborate. Now, in these collaborative groups, you have students who are of different abilities, who are of different, and so when the students come together with their differences, they complement each other and support each other. And so that is how it is that we have evolved in education. Not only that, we do not have static groups. And so today, I may be in a group where I have 3 students who love to color, and they love to paint, and I might not be the one who love to paint. But tomorrow, I might find myself in a group that we love to dramatize, and I love to dramatize. So I'm not stuck in a group based on my academic acumen, but I'm placed in a group because of how it is that we're going to bolster each other. And so that is how it is that we have evolved. Now, as it relates to the resources that we have in the system, now we would have injected resources in the system so that our students who are challenged in various ways that there is that kind of resource to assist students so that they can become the best versions of themselves. Also, with our curriculum, it's so varied. We have students now who are doing drama, they are doing athletics, they are doing things that they might not be the brightest in the pack, but there's something there that they can excel. And so while somebody over this side, they are excelling in academics, I'm over here, I'm excelling in it is that, oh, I can do craft, or I'm excelling over this side with how it is that I can sing and I can dance, I can use my body. And so we have evolved to the point where we are harnessing students' skills, students' abilities in ways that cause students to feel empowered and, a sense of achievement in the space that they operate. Yes.
What does your journey, though, say about how we define intelligence, potential, and success, especially for girls?
Thanks for that. Now, based on what the literature says about how our brains develop, and also based on how it is that we culture our girls and our boys, and how it is that we socialize in the space, I can say that we would have, come a far way. We would have come a far way, because no longer are we saying that, look, we can't have our girls doing mechanics, or no longer we are hearing that we are not going to have our girls do electrical engineering. You may be able to relate about your own experience, because girls were doing home economics, boys were in the workshops. But now there is the thrust for our boys and our girls to be skillful. Maybe you'd have the experience where the science and the arts, we were pushing those. So if it is that you were not doing the 5 A levels that were the biology and the chemistry and the physics, but now the platform is so wide, so that we say to our students, look, we are offering you these vocational areas because they are lucrative, and you can see that in our surroundings, in our environment. We sometimes persons who would have had one track, just the academics, they are not as lucrative as persons who would have taken on a more broad-based kind of education. And so what we are doing now for our students, we are saying that, look, you can learn a skill, you must learn a skill outside of just the straight academics, And so we have broadened the space, and we are open up the avenues for our students to be on multiple tracks, depending on their own liking, depending on their own skill sets, depending on their own talents and their own dispositions. We say the limit is what you place on yourself. You can go out there and you can acquire these skills without any boundaries.
I'm glad for that. You know why? Because
Yes.
I remember growing up and being streamed as being better, not good at maths, and everybody agreed that girls are not generally good at maths. They're better at English. So I excelled in English, and as a result, the maths still don't have maths. Even at CXC today, and I've gone through 2 degrees, still don't have maths. Still have to ask my son, because he's a boy, to help with the mathematical aspect of anything. So I understand that, these labels do kind of box you in. And as girls, we tend to listen a lot to what others say. But Dr. Robinson, if your younger self could see you now, what would shock her the most?
My young self would be shocked that I have a range 1 in English language because I couldn't read. My young self would be flabbergasted at the idea that I'm an author. My young self would be shocked to say that I challenged myself to study at the doctoral levels. My young self will be shocked to know that I became an educator. My young self will be shocked to know that I am in policy implementation, working with the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information, leading principles and guiding, how policy is implemented to change lives and to transform generations. My young self would be proud of what this adult self would have done with the self.
Well said, Dr. Robinson. Okay, what do you hope your story disrupts for the next generation of women?
Thanks for that. Now, I started sharing my story as a guest speaker when I go to graduations or when I'm invited just to speak. I would share my story, share my journey. And invariably, individuals would say to me, this story is powerful. Why not write it down? I must tell you, it was a challenge to write the story because I didn't know that writing, it would take so much out of you. It takes your time, it takes the skills and everything. It took a lot. But I write so that individuals could connect with my story. And I write so that the message in the story, which is that you do not have to stay where you started. As a matter of fact, you shouldn't. But each day, you should put one foot before the other and make a step forward. That is what I would hope. That is the message in the story. The other thing that I would love for persons to get from the story is that education is a transformational tool, not just for individuals, but for generations, for family lineage. Education is that thing that can liberate families and can set you, on par with how it is that you interact with your society. I am hoping that individuals who are in education will understand that they don't give up on a young life. As a matter of fact, you don't give up on any life at all. I want educators to know that they should nurture what they're given, because greatness is bottled in each soul that God placed before an educator, so that they get to mold and they get to uncover and help individuals to discover what's inside, so that each day they get to interact with a person that they're tasked to educate, that they value that opportunity with every fiber of their being, so that it is not squandered. I hope. That's a hope in the book. And I'm hoping that every parent out there believe in their children and that they take it seriously and they speak love and life in their children. So it's wrapped up in everything like that.
Okay. I'm going to delve just a little bit more because you're such an interesting person, Dr. Robinson. I just want a little bit more. What do you know about yourself that no label could ever take away now? Can you divulge?
Thank you for that. Now, let me share with you. Here I was a little girl who struggled with reading. I struggled with other things in my community at the time. I had the experience of being in an abusive marriage. And with all of that, I was able to dust off and to continue on a journey to be here today. I am convinced that God had a mission for my life. And so no label that anybody places on me can erase and erode that which I believe in my spirit and my heart about what God would have invested in me, that He can do that again. Having had all of those experiences, there is nothing or no one that can die, that can cause me to believe anything wrapped up in any label that man can put on me, because I believe that God would have chosen me as a vessel to carry a message and to shine light into dark places. I am convinced.
What does power look like for you as a woman who has defined her own narrative?
Power for me, it is not anything ordinary. Power for me is not a loud voice, but power for me is carrying with you a glow, carrying with you a mission to transform lives, to show others an example of leadership, not just from being at the front, not just from the labels that we carry like doctor, but it is how it is that you appreciate humanity and leverage that which God would have given you so that you can cause others to shine and don't ever feel like your light is dim. That is what power looks like for me. So power for me is what God would have placed in you so that you can be a blessing to others. It's not anything loud. It's not anything that is pompous and haughty. It is something that is as a velvet gloves, has a good heart, and has God as at the center. That is what power is for me.
Beautiful. What are you building now that aligns with the woman you've become?
Thanks for that. I must share with you that I raise a daughter, and not myself alone, my entire family and my community. And I raise her, so that's one. And two, I lead a church. So I have a community that looks to me for leadership, that looks to me for mentorship. I lead persons in my work environment, and they look to me for direction and guidance. And I lead this person called Euphemia. I have the great task of leading. It means, therefore, that I have to be disciplined. I have to set goals. I have to work hard to achieve them so that I can be true to myself. And I can prove to myself that, look, you have it within you to lead. And also, you are authentic and you can lead those persons who are depending on you for you to lead, you know? So I have to continue to invest in this girl in terms of how it is that I continue to read, I continue to study, how it is that I continue to sharpen my skills, how it is that I continue to be parts of communities that are empowering so that I can build and cause others to grow with me even as I grow.
Beautifully said. All right, complete this sentence.
Yes.
I am no longer
Labeled person that is restricted.
wonderful. Another one. I now stand as
A child of God, shining light in dark places.
that sounds good. So if your life proves anything to the world about women, labels and potential, what is that truth?
The truth is that I would encourage every lady, every woman to wear that label that God would have given to you. There are some other labels that persons can place on you that you can even place on yourself because of what you experience and because of the community that you grew up in and because of your culture, because of your social environs. I say, take that label that God placed on you. And he said that, I promise you an expected end. Take on that label that God placed on you. That's what I would say about any label.
So there it is, folks. You don't have to conform to the label society bestows upon you, woman. Empower thyself. And this has been The Wet Show. I see you in another. Thanks for coming, Dr. Robinson. Hope you come again.
It was my pleasure. I'm hoping to come again.
Thank you so much.